to explore some of the implications of central bank digital currencies for folks kind of following at home. A digital dollar would resemble in certain ways cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin or Ethereum in certain limited respects, but differ in very important ways as well. Now, Dr. Levin, rather than a tradable asset with wildly fluctuating prices that we see in certain crypto markets and limited real life use as a currency, a central bank digital currency would function more like dollars and have more widespread acceptance, presumably, correct?
Right. The point is that with a central ledger in an electronic world, you can have instant, free, secure transactions.
Great.
That's why, coming back to this other thing, when I think about digital world, like cell phone, we don't say, well, is this for work or is it for home? Mm-hmm. It's for everything. And so it's all the above. And so absolutely having a free, safe, secure, instant transaction platform that every American can use is what we should have had already, and we need it now.
Thank you. And just to clarify, it would also be fully regulated under a central authority, right? Yeah.
So I think there's been some agreement among a number of us at this table that these should be 100% backed by reserves held at the Fed. So there's no concern that the stablecoin provider might go bankrupt. Okay, and then there's a panic and people.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I just have limited time. Now, economists like Claudia Sahm have, and as we've heard throughout the hearing, agree that direct stimulus payments, like the checks that Americans received during the pandemic, can shorten recessions. And although stimulus payments helped stabilize the economy during the pandemic, delivery was sometimes slow. And even the IRS and the Treasury just announced last week that 2.2 million stimulus payments were made in late July. These were the stimulus payments that people got months ago after the original passing of the American Rescue Plan. Now, this is not because of some technical, payments getting lost in technology or bureaucracy. It's because the most vulnerable people in our society are hardest to reach. People who don't have consistent mailing addresses, people who are unbanked, a lot of times because it's too expensive to be banked, people who don't file taxes because they make too little money. And these are real issues. And so my question is, with the CBDC, it's all about the design. It's not just the idea, it's the execution, design, and implementation. And my question is, in that similar vein, what would make a well-designed CBDC system that helps overcome some of these existing issues that we have seen with banks and with just the delivery of stimulus checks? Ms. Coronado?
So one of the key pieces of the design is that the lower income households should have no fees whatsoever to engage, and that some of the technology access questions would be part of the infrastructure that's built. Mm-hmm. Whether that's a digital card that they're provided or kiosks, some sort of access to their accounts that is free and built and available to them to engage in the transactions.
Got it. And there has been some discussion even most recently, and we heard in the last few minutes, about two-tier systems. And Dr. Coronado, in your testimony, you say, quote, preserving a two-tier system of private providers would promote competition and continued innovation, while Fed oversight would promote that safety and soundness. Now, by two-tier systems, you're referring to how certain banks like Wells Fargo, Bank of America, JP Morgan can bank with the Federal Reserve, but regular Americans cannot, right? That's what you're alluding to? Okay. Now, I just want to be clear here, just for clarification. There is no legal, technical, or operational requirement as to why banks or private payment companies need to be involved, correct? In other words, the federal government could provide public digital currency services directly to the public if it wanted to, like the Postal Service provides
bank. Sure, yes.
Money to, okay, thank you. Now, I think one of the things that we're seeing here is that we're facing a choice. Mm-hmm. Congress is facing a choice, whether we want to give, Wall Street another tool of being in charge of the public's money and payments, or whether we can potentially establish a public option here as well. Now, one concern that we hear in CBDC conversations, my time is up. I'm sorry, so I can't get to the last question. I'll file it for the record.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank the gentleman for yielding. The majority leader just a few minutes ago used the term danger to our democracy. Danger to our democracy. Think about this. Democrats have closed the Capitol, allowed proxy voting, kicked Republicans off committee, won't let Republicans serve on this select committee. First time in the history of the Congress, the minority leader was not allowed to put on a select committee the individuals he or she selected. First time in the history of our nation. Democrats are trying to end the Electoral College, trying to end the filibuster, trying to pack the court. This committee, the January 6th committee, altered evidence and presented to the American people as if it were true. And they accuse us of being a danger to our democracy? Mr. Gates was right. We got a border that is complete chaos. We have $6 gas in California, $4 gas everywhere else in the country. We have crime at record levels in every major urban area in this nation. And we have an inflation problem that's at a 40-year high. And this committee has more contempt resolutions for a purely political reason. I think the whole committee is purely political, designed to do one thing: keep President Trump off the ballot in 2024. The gentlelady from Wyoming, in her opening comments, used the term false message. False, she used to say big lie. Now I guess it's false message. And I just jotted, I thought when she said, I started jotting things down. False, think about all the false messages we've got from them in the last few years. They told us the protests in the summer of 2020 were peaceful. Got $1 billion worth of damage around our cities that says it wasn't. They told us the dossier was real. They told us it was Republicans who wanted to defund the police. That's almost laughable if it wasn't so serious for our law enforcement and for the families who live in those areas where mayors and city councils did defund the police. They told us the FBI didn't spy on the Trump campaign. We know that wasn't true. We got Inspector General reports that tell us all kinds of things about what they did in front of the FISA court. They said Trump colluded with Russia. We got a Mueller report, 19 lawyers, 40 FBI agents, 30 million hard-earned American tax dollars in that report that said that false message was just that, false. They told us COVID didn't start in the lab. Sure looks like it did. They told us the lab wasn't doing gain-of-function research. Sure looks like it was. They told us the vaccinated can't get it. We know that's wrong. Every day there's a new announcement. A member of Congress is getting it. Fully vaccinated, boosted, everything else. They told us the vaccinated can't transmit it. They told us that was wrong. And you talk about the biggest false message that's just been confirmed in the last week, how false it was. The Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. The Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. October 22nd, 2020, 2 weeks before the election, candidate Biden, in a debate, is asked about his son's business dealings with foreign companies. He says, quote, nothing was unethical. He said, my son has not made money with business interests with companies with an interest in China. And we all know there are 4.8 million reasons why that statement was not accurate. And how do we know? Washington Post told us. Not me, not President Trump, not Republicans. The Washington Post told us last week, 2 stories last week, a week ago today, one at 11 a.m., one at 11:04 a.m. 2 8-page articles, 4 minutes apart, confirming what we knew, but what big media, big tech, Democrats colluded to keep from the American people just days before the most important election we have, the presidential election. Who's going to be our next commander-in-chief? The laptop was real. The eyewitness was real. The emails were real. The only thing fake was that collusion from those individuals, those entities, to keep important information from we the people in the run-up to the most important election we have. And oh, by the way, they were joined by 51 former intel officials, joined in the collusion. You know, it's also interesting. It's funny how that story has changed. 18 months ago, started off, wasn't his laptop. Quickly switched to, well, it was his laptop, but it was Russian disinformation. And now it is, well, it wasn't Russian disinformation, but Joe Biden had nothing to do with it. Now it was, well, Joe knew what was going on, but he wasn't really involved in anything wrong. Ron Klain told us that. Chief of Staff told us that Sunday. We need to be focused on the issues that the American people want us to focus on. If you want to talk about danger to our democracy and the biggest false message, I would say what happened, one of the biggest dangers to our democracy and one of the biggest false messages is what happened 18 months ago, where that story was kept from the American people. We could dig into that, find out what went on there, why that happened, and we could also focus on the record crime, record inflation, record price of gas, and the chaos on our southern border that's about to get worse as the Democrats look to, as the Biden
Gentleman's recognized for 30 more seconds.
Title 42. I urge a no vote and yield back.
Gentleman from Indiana reserves.